What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo. Today, we have a special guest on. It's Jay Dimes. He's going to be a recurring guest here on Fireside Giants. So everyone down in the comment section, give him the big Fireside welcome because you'll be seeing his face a lot more frequently now. But today, we're going to go ahead and dive into the top weaknesses on the New York Giants defense heading into the 2023 NFL Draft, discuss how we think the Giants can improve these positions, why there's such big weaknesses, and just really dive into it, give you some good analysis on the topic. But before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy, comment your thoughts on it down below, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. But without further ado, Jay, how are you doing today, and what are your thoughts on the top weaknesses of the Giants defense?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to talk some Giants football today, man. And when we look at this Giants defense heading into the draft, we know that we need that, that cornerback too. That's one position that, we definitely need to address early in the draft. We have safety after the Julian Love departure. We know that we got not sure what round, but we are definitely going to have to fill in that void after he's gone and went to Seattle. And we got to get some more depth in the front seven, which the Giants and Joe Schoen have definitely addressed early on in the free agency with the Nochez signing and the rumors about a possible A'Shawn Robinson signing. So we'll see how that all plays out. But it's time to get into it. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I think that the obvious weakness is cornerback. You take a look at what the Giants have on the outside. I love Adoree Jackson. He's super valuable. We did a live stream earlier this week, and we discussed that in length, talking about the impact that he had in that wild card game against Minnesota. You look at that first game against Minnesota, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, they were pretty much unguardable for the Giants defense that didn't have Adoree Jackson. And in every game that the Giants didn't have Adoree Jackson, it felt like there was a receiver going off, making big-time plays, even the game against Philadelphia in the regular season. So losing Adoree Jackson was a huge loss. If there has to be one thing that you criticize Brian Daboll for from that season, it's letting Adoree Jackson return punts. That was a stupid idea. We all know that. And I think even Brian Daboll himself would admit that wasn't the best idea. But now we see the impact that he has. Sometimes you got to lose something to know what you really lost. And once we lost Adoree Jackson for those weeks, it just became so obvious how important he is to this defense. But getting him back on the field in the wild card round, watching him shut down Justin Jefferson, he's amazing. Like, he is a CB1. But who's playing alongside him in the 2023 season? Because right now, whatever the Giants have on their roster, I do not feel comfortable going into 2023 with those players as the starting boundary corners opposite of Adoree Jackson. I think that absolutely the Giants need to consider maybe adding a true bona fide starter. They did just add somebody recently, Amani Oruwariye. I don't know how to say his name just yet, but from the Detroit Lions, 6'2", really good press boundary corner. He had a really off year in 2022, but if you look at his stats from 2019, 20, and 21, he was getting better and better every year, just getting more comfortable to the NFL game. He had 6 interceptions in 2021. So I think that's a player that could potentially be the starter on the outside opposite of Adoree Jackson. But if there's a really good corner on the board at 25, I definitely think that's a main option. It's going to be either wide receiver 1 or you take that CB2. But Jay, what are your thoughts on the new cornerback that the Giants just signed? Maybe you know how to pronounce his name much better than I do. And talking about him, and then what do you think about the ideas of taking a corner at 25 overall?
Well, I was a pretty big fan of the signing. I think that it's definitely a signing where the Giants are looking at that 2021 season where he had a pretty decent season, catching 6 interceptions, having a 74.7 passer rating allowed. And he showed, some flashes in that season. But in 2022, again, he didn't have the best season. The Lions secondary in general did not have, a great performance in 2022. But I feel like the Giants look at him as a guy where in this Wink Martindale scheme, as a CB2 playing, next to Adoree Jackson, can we replicate that 2021 season? So it's a 1-year deal. It's not a, a long-term commitment. It's a deal where, if you go out there and show that you can, replicate that 2021 season, maybe you have a future with the Giants. But about the draft, I definitely think cornerback is at a position that the Giants are going to go in and try to address early, maybe as early as pick 25 in the first round. I know a lot of people like to see wide receiver, but I really do think right now that cornerback position is probably the biggest need on this Giants roster. The Giants did go out there and, again, like you said, sign somebody, Oruwariye, we'll get the name right. And, but definitely, this quarterback draft class is deep. It's a lot of talent from top and bottom. So, who knows? Maybe the Giants do look at this cornerback draft class and take one early as pick 25 in the first round. So, I'm definitely thinking that may be in play for the Giants in the first round of the draft.
Yeah, so I looked it up, NFL Draft Pronunciation Guide. Oruwariye. We're going to get that one down. Amani Oruwariye, I do like the game that he brings. I think he's a perfect scheme fit. That's why the Giants went with him, signing him in free agency. Obviously, it's going to be a short-term, low-money deal, as it should be, considering he's coming off of a really weak 2022 outing. But he's still young. I believe he's only 25 years old, been in the NFL for 4 years. This is a player that I do think has a lot of potential. Coming out of Penn State, he's got that connection with Saquon Barkley. Maybe they link up in the locker room, and it just kind of energizes him, and he goes into 2023 feeling really strongly. And Wink Martindale gets the best out of all of his players. Like, if there's one thing that we learned from last season, it's that Wink Martindale knows how to propel these guys after career years. I mean, look at Xavier McKinney. He was phenomenal. Look at Dexter Lawrence. There was top performers all over the team. And I mean, even on the offensive side of the ball, as a shout out to Brian Dable as well. But with Amani Oruwariye, I think that he has the opportunity here to kind of reestablish himself as one of those up-and-comers, because that's really what he was in 2021. I read this article from PFF this morning where after that 2021 season, they were kind of discussing him and just saying that he is like the next big thing. And then it just kind of like fell apart in 2022, which is really unfortunate. But a lot of that could just have to do with the fact that, well, the Detroit Lions, they didn't have a whole lot of talent in their secondary. Yes, they were a well-coached team, but every year there's some sort of scheme changes, positional changes around the talent around him. Maybe that's ultimately what affected him. Getting into this defense with Adoree Jackson on the other side, it's a press man, a lot of cover three defense, single high safeties, and Wink Martindale. That's very familiar to Amani, and I think that's exactly why they went and signed him and why I think he could have an impact. But yes, when you look at the 25th overall pick, there's some solid options at cornerback. If Joey Porter Jr. happens to fall to 25, that's another Penn State corner. Maybe you link up both of these Penn State 6'2" cornerbacks and let them get to work. And I would love to see that, because Joey Porter, dude, he is a beast. I love what he brings to the table in press coverage. And I also do like Deonte Banks out of Maryland. There's a lot of really talented cornerbacks. Alex really likes Emmanuel Forbes. I'm pretty lukewarm on Emmanuel Forbes because he weighed in at 166 pounds at the combine. That's someone who's like not even on my draft board in the first round, but he was mocked to the Giants recently in a mock draft, so I guess I could see it happening. But listen, cornerback, at the end of the day, that's the number one position that I think the Giants need to address on the defensive side of the ball. But there is another area of weakness on defense that I think the Giants will soon be addressing. The depth in the front seven needs to be addressed, right? Linebacker, they went out, they got Bobby Okereke, and I really like him. He's going to be the starting linebacker, but who's behind him? And of course, we know Leonard Williams likely back this season, though I guess that's to be determined. Dexter Lawrence, of course, back, going to be the dominant player that he always is. And now they also added Nunez Roche along those two players on the defensive line, but who is really behind them? So, Jay, what are your thoughts on the front seven? And when you're looking at the defensive line depth versus the linebacker depth, which one do you think is a bigger issue?
I do think the Giants are, making it a definitely a, speaking point on how are we going to grab depth behind Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. And if you're asking me which, position, has better depth than the other, I'm gonna have to go with the starting four that has the better depth. I think Bobby Okereke is the starting linebacker. We brought him in on a 4-year, $40 million deal, and I like the signing. But again, outside of him, who is that linebacker two? And I think that is one position where we haven't really talked about much because of the signing. But you can't go wrong with two good linebackers. And I know that we went out, signed Bobby Okereke to be the linebacker one. But again, what if one play Bobby Okereke can't come in and we got to bring in somebody to back up him, or he gets hurt? Hopefully he doesn't get hurt, but if he does, who's going to be the backup guy? Last year, the Giants linebacker core was awful. It was awful. And I don't think one signing at the position, even though we think it's a good signing, it doesn't, change that much because it was just that bad. I don't want the Giants to be in week 8, week 9, having to pick up a guy off the street like we did last year with Gerard Davis and, Jalen Smith, who we did bring back in Jerry Davis. But right now, I think the front seven starting point is definitely at, the defensive line. I think that is where the Giants' stronger, depth is after the Nochez signing, possibly a Sean Robinson's coming back. And they just have more talent in Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, and when you look at some of the players on the Giants roster right now who could potentially make an impact at linebacker, they're very young, they're unproven, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Giants roll with these young guys and try and develop them into something, or if they do address the position in the 2023 NFL draft. This year, there's actually quite a bit of linebacker talent in the draft. If they want to go with a linebacker as early as the 25th overall pick, Deion Henley out of Washington State is an option. And I also think Trenton Simpson, while he's starting to fall a little bit down draft boards, he's also an option. Just an athletic freak, hybrid linebacker. He makes a ton of sense. But I want to ask you, Jay, some of these guys on the back end of the roster, young guys, do you think that they're good enough to be dependent on, or are they just too big of question marks and the Giants need to add more talent? The players that I'm referring to, not Jarrad Davis, he's a veteran. We know what he brings. The Giants re-signed him. I like that. Just solid veteran depth. But Darian Beavers and Micah McFadden, both drafted last offseason. Darian Beavers looked great before tearing his ACL in the preseason and training camp period. Micah McFadden went into the regular season, didn't play too well. He didn't really make much of an impact, and he clearly had his rookie growing pains. So how comfortable are you rolling into this upcoming season with Bobby Okereke as your number one linebacker and then potentially a mixture of Jarrad Davis, Darian Beavers, and Micah McFadden behind him? Are you comfortable with that, or is it just like the Giants absolutely need to add more talent?
I think the Giants got to add more talent. I know that we used picks last year in the late rounds of the draft on, Micah McFadden and Darian Beavers, who I like Darian Beavers. I think he, is going to have an impact one day on this team, but he is coming off that ACL injury, which sucks. And Micah McFadden, like you said, did not play well as much as we hoped he could have when he had the chance. And I think the Giants have to add another linebacker to this defense. I know that, some people are higher on these guys than I am, but I don't feel comfortable with Micah McFadden, slotted in at the linebacker 2 position. I think the Giants do need to add another linebacker to this course some way, somehow, right? If it's in the draft, maybe they look, back into free agency. Maybe they dive back into free agency. But right now, I am not that comfortable in the linebacker 2. I don't want to be a revolving door at linebacker 2 between Jarrad Davis, Micah McFadden, and Darian Beavers. I really don't like that. I really don't want that. So if the Giants, could add another linebacker to this linebacker core, I would not mind that at all, because I don't want to say I'm not that high on, but I'm not that comfortable with those guys being backup linebackers to Bobby Okereke as linebacker 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, I like Darian Beavers. I like his potential, but we'll see exactly what he turns into. Sometimes those guys look really good in preseason, get to the regular season, and they're not as good. We didn't even get to see that with Darian Beavers, unfortunately, but I'm hoping that this is a guy who bounces back really strong from that injury. And I hope he can make an impact this upcoming season. I'd like to see it, young guy out of Cincinnati. But let's talk about the safety position. Now, this is a spot that just recently opened up. Julian Love signing with the Seattle Seahawks on a 2-year deal. That blows. I really wanted to see him back with the Giants for many years to come. I'm a huge fan of Julian Love. However, he's gone. Got to move on. What's the replacement? Is Bobby McCain the replacement? The Giants just signed him. Personally, I don't think so. I think that's a depth signing, a veteran depth signing, guy who can move around the secondary. But quickly, Jay, what are your thoughts on the Bobby McCain signing, and what are your expectations for him this season?
I like the signing. I know when we had first got the news that he was signed here, all the Washington Commanders fans, kind of harped on the deal. But first of all, it's a 1-year, probably a vet minimum deal, and he does add much needed versatility to the defense as a safety and a slot corner. And he's not come off the best season in 2022, but in 2021, he was, he had a pretty decent season, kind of like Amani Oruwariye. So he's also a veteran, so that adds more veteran leadership to the defense. But I do think the Giants need to add a safety, rather in the draft. But I like the deal. I like the signing. It's not a 2-year, 3-year commitment. It's a 1-year, probably a vet minimum deal. The Giants can't go no wrong with adding another piece, definitely after losing Julian Love, who was a very, very, very impactful starter on this defense for that 2022 season.
Yeah, and I actually really like how many players are available in the draft this upcoming offseason at the safety position. I did a breakdown on the safety position, some of the draft targets on the channel earlier this week. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But a few of those players, I want to hit on one in particular. Jay, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Jordan Battle, but this is a guy that I really, really like for the New York Giants. Alabama product. He's friends with Xavier McKinney. I'm all in on this guy. He could be there in round 3 for the Giants. And if that's the case, I swear I would literally lace up my shoes, put my knee brace on my torn MCL, and sprint to the podium. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Jordan Battle? If you're familiar with him, and kind of, is that somebody who you think that the Giants should make a priority to try and go ahead and target in this year's draft?
Say his name again.
Jordan Battle out of Alabama.
Jordan Battle. Oh, yes. I think that Jordan Battle, he played for that Alabama defense, played alongside Brian Branch, who is one of the highest rated secondary pieces in this draft. I definitely think he's a guy that the Giants could target in the probably 3rd, 4th, 5th round. I think he would be a nice addition to this defense. And one thing about Alabama is that they are very good at making secondary, like they are good at making secondary pro level talent. We have one on our team and it's Xavier McKinney, so I would not mind the Giants, going out, looking at Jordan Battle, seeing him, and adding him to this, defense where he would be playing alongside another Alabama product in Xavier McKinney. So yes, I do like the product. I do like the prospect rather of Jordan Battle, safety out of Alabama. I do like it a lot.
Yeah, there's some great quotes from Jordan Battle talking about Xavier McKinney and the potential of reuniting with him. He mentioned that they still play Xbox together. They're always playing video games, and that when Jordan Battle got to Alabama, he was in the same dorm hall as Xavier McKinney, and McKinney just served as a real mentor for him. So I think when you look at those two, like the potential that they could have playing in an NFL defense together, I'm really excited about that. Like, I just think that if the Giants wanted to target one mid-round safety, that's the guy, because when you look at what Xavier McKinney was doing last season, he's playing a lot as a free safety, single high, in those cover 3 and cover 1s. And they had Julian Love oftentimes play in the box. But Julian Love is not necessarily the best box safety. He didn't really have that meat, that muscle to him to get into the box and make an impact in the running game. But a guy like Jordan Battle, 6'1", 209 pounds, he is a box safety. That's what the Giants need. So you can have Xavier McKinney do that single high stuff, be that ball hawk, and then drop Jordan Battle into the box and let him kind of play like a linebacker role. I love that idea, but there's a few guys who could do that in this draft as well. When you look at guys like Antonio Johnson, if they want to go with someone in the second round, he's a really good player as well. But like looking at the safeties on the Giants roster currently, I'll list them out to you. You just tell me how you feel about this position and how high of a priority should this be for the Giants as they enter this draft. Okay, so you've got Xavier McKinney, obviously. Then you have Nick McLeod, Jason Pinnock, and Bobby McCain, and Terrell Burgess, who I've never even heard of. So when I look at the safety spot, I think that this is literally one of the biggest needs for the New York Giants. But a lot of fans on Twitter seem to disagree with me and say that we don't need a safety. Bobby McCain's Xavier McKinney. I don't know, dude. This looks pretty rough to me. This looks like a really beat down safety position. Do you share the same sentiment that I do, that I have?
I do, but I also like one other guy on this team that played in kind of, spotty types of snap count last year, and that's the rookie out of Iowa who was drafted by the Giants like the 5th, 6th round, and that's Dane Belton. I am a huge Dane Belton guy. He did get thrown into doghouse, I think, mid-season, but when he's on the field, he had bright spots. He had a pretty decent QBR rating when the ball was thrown to him, and I think he's probably a dark horse for that starting safety spot, no matter what the Giants do in the draft. I do like Bobby McCain, but again, though, the Giants do need to add another guy. I'm not, as worried about the position, but it's definitely still a position of need for the Giants in the draft. But some of the guys that you named, like Jason Pinnock, I think he's another guy that could battle for that starting safety spot. I liked what he did when he was with the Jets, so I was kind of high when we brought him in. Terrell Burgess, I remember him playing for the Rams. Wasn't really a guy that made that much of an impact, but overall, I do think this is a position of need for the Giants. But don't count out my guy Dane Belton. I would not mind the Giants throwing him at that strong safety spot, play next to Xavier McKinney, and let's see what he does in a full snap count. Because last year as a rookie, when he played, some of the snaps, he didn't look that bad. But I am still thinking the Giants do need to add another piece. It is definitely another need that the Giants need to address in the draft.
No, I'm glad you brought up Dane Belton. I really like him. I think that he is a very solid player for the Giants. Like, I think there's a lot of potential there. He did things similar to like what Julian Love did, playing in multiple positions. But that's kind of where I feel like Dane Belton might have to settle into that slot role, or maybe play free safety in reserve of Xavier McKinney, because I don't see him as this big box guy. Like, he seems a little thin to me. I don't think he can get into the box and make too much of an impact in the running game. But I like him as a ball hawk on the back end, or maybe as a slot cornerback. So I think he's going to end up playing that role that Julian Love played, where you just kind of move around. Okay, say there's an injury at slot, throw Dane Belton at slot. Let's say there's an injury at free safety, strong safety, outside, wherever. Dane Belton, like Julian Love, has the ability to pretty much just line up anywhere. And I think that's really valuable, especially as a young guy, coming out of Iowa. I like Dane Belton. He had an interception last year. There's definitely potential there. And I'm hoping that he does win that starting role. But if he doesn't, I do think that there's a few players in the draft that the Giants could absolutely target. But let us know what you think down below in the comment section on these weaknesses. Who do you want to see the Giants target in the draft? Let us know down below. And make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Again, comment below and give Jay a big Fireside welcome. He's going to be on the channel pretty much regularly. So make sure to go comment down below and say what's up. And of course, make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. We'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.